Hi, I'm Nicola.
And I'm Jay Percy.
And welcome to the Afro Animist Podcast.
We are two animists and spiritual practitioners exploring the secular through the spiritual, discussing life experiences through a sacred lens.
Each week we share our experiences and dive deep into everything in life, from philosophy, metaphysics, obeah, occultism, shamanism, culture, healing, nature, animism,
the arts, pop culture, conspiracies, psychedelics and witchcraft. Nothing is off the table in these discussions, which aim to get to the heart of what it means to be spiritual and Afro-diasporic in an increasingly sterile and authoritarian world.
We keep it real whilst exploring the biggest mysteries of our multiverse. Join us holding this space to laugh, cry, debate, build community and tear down oppressive structures.
Welcome, beautiful, beautiful beings of the multiverse, to a very special episode of the Afro Animist Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking all about the winter season. We're going to be talking about Christmas, Yule, solstice, just birth and rebirth stories that center around this time of year. Because it is particularly festive, so we thought we'd do a particularly festive episode. Nikki, jingle bell sounds here.
Okay,
Something.
I'll try and figure that out. To compensate for the lack of Christmas decorations that are around.
Just a flurry of something, I don't know. Fun cut with... It might just be now us waving crazily.
Probably. Yes. Yeah,
So what is your favourite thing about this time of year? This Christmassy time of year?
My birthday, Ovs.
Okay, yes.
Probably the best date in the year, if I'm honest.
It is just definitely the best date in the year.
Just to let all you lovely listeners know out there, it's the 12th of the 12th. Oh, well, you guys will have missed my birthday, but I can totally drag on my birthday month until January. So
birthday
gifts.
Month. I have a birthday month too.
You did have a birthday month this
please.
Year. Yeah. But you also got married in your birthday month. You did a lot of exciting things in your birthday month.
Technically, I got married the day before my birthday month, so that doesn't count.
This is true. I was thinking about it more astrologically, star sign wise.
I got married in Cancer season. My birthday is in Cancer season. Yeah.
There you go.
Depending whether I do sidereal or the more common one we use in the West. What one's that called?
Tropical.
I'm Cancer in both, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, you are Cancer in both. And oh gosh, I don't have your chart with me. Oh my God, where's my dossier?
The dossier.
But you've got in your sidereal, you have your rising and your sun in Cancer.
And I do in tropical as well.
That's so mental.
Yeah, I'm heavily Cancerian.
You are.
I'm Christmas in July.
You are Christmas in July, babes. You
are.
Oh. Well, yeah, Sagittarius over here. Sagittarius or Ophiuchus or Scorpio, depending on what chart you're looking at. I don't know. Is anyone...
Really?
Yeah. So in my tropical, I'm obviously Sagittarius, Sun, Capricorn rising, and Virgo moon, which does make sense. But there's been times when I've kind of struggled with that, and I think it doesn't 1,000% make sense. And then in tropical, I am not tropical. In sidereal, I am Ophiuchus Sun, which is the 13th sign, and it is between I don't know, like December 9th or something to the 14th or 15th, something like that. It's a very small chunk. It's not a massive constellation. So I'm Ophiuchus Sun. I'm Sagittarius rising, which I actually think makes more sense. Okay. And Leo moon, I think. So it's quite different.
Leo moon?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And then in Vedic astrology, I'm essentially would be a Leo sun, which is equivalent called Falguni, I think, which is, yeah, my Vedic. It's
Yeah.
very confusing. Like, I've literally been emailing people on Instagram. Sorry if you're one of those people
Yeah.
going, "So can you explain this thing to me about today? I see that you do this astrology, and I just don't really understand." There's just so many, like, schools of thought about it, and different ways to do it. I mean, I do love sidereal because of it follows the procession of the equinox, essentially, so it follows the movement of the stars, so sidereal astrology is based on what the stars actually look like now, like what they're saying now, whereas tropical is, to my understanding, it's about, I don't know how many, maybe 2,000 years behind or something like that. So they haven't moved, um, the everything's still in the same place, essentially, which it
Yeah.
isn't because the universe is expanding and everything's moving. But
Yes.
there's I think there's definitely a place for both. I just find that with the sidereal stuff, like for prediction and transits and all that kind of thing, wow, I really sound like I know what I'm talking about. I don't. Um, I just find it more on point. Like there's this company that I've been on their mailing list for like a decade called indastro.com, and they're a Vedic astrologers. And seriously, they send me emails like every month just about what's going on in relation to my chart, just like a little thing. And every month I'm like, how did you know? Like they predicted the whole pandemic. Like seriously, the shit they're saying about the end of this year has got me kind of scared because
What are they saying?
they're saying, like, basically from October to March is a difficult. I'm not sure if this is just, it isn't just my chart. I think it does affect me greatly, but it's like a difficult 6 months because of all the retrogrades, all that kind of stuff. But they're also saying that I need to look this up. I will bring the proper information for you, Jay, but it's like, they're saying something like over the next few months, like basically there's some alignments that happened a couple of years ago, and those alignments were the COVID alignments essentially, and like the war alignments and all that kind of crazy shit. So there's something else that's about to hit, according to these
Oh,
guys.
for God's sakes.
I know, babes, but
Oh,
obviously, obvs, like
can
look at
we
the thing.
have 1 year of peace?
No, of course not. This is humanity, babe. This is humanity. Like, think about it. Do you not have this feeling though, like that? Like, if you think about this year, obviously we all got launched back into life. There was no excuse, you're not allowed to stay at
Yeah.
home anymore. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing. But then, like, obviously the war in Ukraine, loads of crazy shit is happening. All of the politics and all the stuff that's happened, even just in the UK, like all of these
Yeah.
kind of crumblings, things falling down, these mass changes. I feel like we're literally right now. I feel like the pandemic was the start of this mass change of society that's happening. And I
Yeah.
don't know, I'm not going to give you a timeline, but it makes sense to me that over the next short period of time, shit gets even more real in certain
Yeah,
aspects.
okay. So I completely get that. I have been having this like undercurrent feeling of
Mm,
the universe is feeling a little shaky at the moment.
yes.
Like timelines are crumbling, empires are crumbling,
Hmm.
um, a lot's being pulled out from under your feet if you're not staying very, very focused. If you
Hmm.
Yeah, if you think about the absolute mess that 2020 and 2021 was, we're now getting revelations about the stuff that they told us then. And it's like, oh yeah, we weren't able to prove that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was very much pushed as, you're a demon if you don't adhere to certain things.
Hmm.
And now it's being revealed that, oh yeah, no, we actually didn't test that, by the way. Or we didn't model that, by the way. We don't actually have the scientific backing behind that, by the way. We just kind of
Hmm.
said it. So
Hmm.
yeah. And the fact that we've got now a revolving door on number 10 Downing Street,
I know.
it does. My husband's actually convinced that, and I think it's beyond plausible that at the moment they're looking to crash sterling so they can
Mhm.
introduce a digital version of the currency. So then that way they can track every transaction that you make.
I
Because
mean,
2020 and 2021 was the test run.
mhm.
And
I
that's they'll be able to keep better tabs. The amount of money that they lose in terms of taxes for like drugs and other crimes, they're not able to get that money. Well, they will be able to get that money if they just legalize this shit, but they'd much rather keep us. They'd
Yeah.
much rather keep us in a lower state of consciousness than doing these things that will actually benefit the country and us long term. Anyway, we
Mhm.
digress.
It's
This
okay.
isn't very Christmassy.
I mean, I think we'll all be thinking about this stuff around Christmas. I tell you what, out on Christmas Day, I guarantee my family is gonna be talking politics. Like, what do you talk about at
Oh, for
Christmas?
God's sakes. The politics talk at Christmas dinner. Do you know what my whole MO during that is?
Yeah.
Drink drink some Bucks Fizz or some mulled
Mhm.
wine, like copious amounts to numb out everyone else's bullshit and just go, that's a really interesting opinion. How did you come to that?
Jay, you should come to
Done.
you should come to Christmas at my mum's house because my family are all fabulous lefty liberals and they love to cut off the government. It's fun. It's actually fun. So, I'm looking forward to it. This is something
I
that I'm
bet
actually
you are.
really, really happy about because I don't really know many people my age whose parents, like, have the same opinions of as they do about
Yeah,
shit. Like, so that fills me with, it's good. But, we like, as English people, I'm just going to be honest about this. Like, we communicate through complaint. It's just like
yeah,
culturally
we do.
how we
It's
do it.
culturally ingrained.
It's culturally ingrained. Exactly.
Self-deprecation,
Yep.
communicating through complaint,
Hmm.
grumbling. How's it things going? Oh, I'm fine, thanks. However, these bad things have been happening. We don't. It would be too violently American to go in at Christmas Day and go, "Life has been great. I don't
I
care
know.
about the government that we have in place. My life is going brilliantly. Look how successful I am."
You would
That.
be rejected. You would be rejected from English society for
Oh,
bigging
she's a
yourself
bit up
up.
herself, isn't she?
Yeah. Gosh, what she's happy that her life is good. What a fucking bitch. Back off with that. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna change this. Okay, I'm gonna complain less in 2023, kind of. It depends on
Yeah, and
what the
we're
government wants.
definitely gonna be doing a whole episode around resolutions and stuff, but I wanna grumble less in 2023.
Yeah.
I want to complain less about things. Um, and I just want to accept things as like the earth is a bit of a shitty realm, and that is just this planet. And do you know what? It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Because everyone's going through it, babes. You're not alone.
It's everyone's going through it.
No, but I'm with you. And I feel like, look, it's about making the space in your life so that you have more stuff that you don't want to complain about than like you do want to complain about. There'll always be something to complain about. I'm not going to lie. I probably will always complain about something, but there is
Absolutely.
I think 2023 is a year of recognizing the good things for sure. Like even this year, to be honest, Jay, like it's been a full on year for me. I
Yeah.
just know we all know it's been a full on year for you. It's also been a very full on year for
This has
me.
been a full on year for
Like,
you too.
it has just like lots of ups and downs, but like, if I'm truly honest and I look back, even amongst those like super crazy difficulties, this is probably one of the better years of my life because of the actions that I have taken for myself. And almost like that kind of like the prep space. Okay, like the grind of 2022, m- I know means that 2023 is going to be, they'll still be grinding, but it's going to be a fucking dream. Like,
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited to move into next
It's
year.
like 2022 has been a gestation period for you, and it's been a bit like
Mm,
messy and putting things together and pulling things apart.
mhm.
However, it means that in 2023 you'll have a hopefully a beautiful new year that isn't started by either wildfires or wars or a
Look,
new prime minister.
at my mum's house, I'm telling you, none of that stuff is gonna happen at my mum's house, so it's fine. We'll move in to 2023 in a good way. Um,
Do you have any Christmas traditions that you have with your family that you do each year? And are there any traditions that you have that feel a little like unexplained because perhaps other people don't do this?
No, not a single one. Apart from nut roast. I don't know if you guys have nut roast. I think actually now people do, but like 20 years ago when I was saying I was having nut roast for Christmas dinner, people were like, "A nut roast?" I'm like, "Yeah, my family's they're vegetarian." People didn't understand it.
Your family are
Well,
vegetarian?
my mum's a vegetarian.
What?
Yeah.
Did
I
you
know
grow
she's
up a
a
vegetarian?
kind of. I'm super funny about meat. You know this. Like I am a meat eater, but if it's on the bone or any no, bruv. I cannot do that. I'm not eating a chicken wing, none of that shit.
So
But
when
my
you
mum
go to Nando's, you're eating, like, chicken breasts or their thighs, you're not eating their
maybe.
quarter chicken?
No, 'cause I don't like those boneless thigh things, man. It's got all the fat in it, like all the like stringy skin, all that. I can't deal with it. Yeah, I should just be a vegetarian, but I can't bother. Um, no, that isn't true. That isn't true. No, I've gone through being vegetarian, being vegan, and like I just listen to what my body tells me it wants to eat. So when
Yeah,
I was actually vegan, I was really sick. Like I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and I was in bed for a very long time. I had a couple of years where I really couldn't do anything. And during that
mm,
time, I started dreaming of eating. I'm sure I said this before on here. I started dreaming of eating
probably.
like Fred Flintstone dinosaur fucking like legs
Yeah,
of meat on the bone. It's massive. Like I'm having these dreams where I'm just going, and I was like, okay, maybe it's time to eat some meat,
yeah.
Nikki, because you're not dreaming of fucking lentils. That's for sure. Your body is telling you what it wants. And, it just was
Yeah,
because I think I wasn't able to take care of myself in the way you would need to in this country to be a vegan, like when I was that unwell.
yeah,
So for
mm.
me, extreme diets are never a good thing. I
I
am
do
very
wonder, I
obsessive.
do often wonder if
Mm.
veganism would be a lot easier if you're living closer to the equator, where you've got all of those tropical fruits that are really nourishing, coming from, like, volcanic ground. Like, the fruit and veg you get
Hmm.
here is, like, nutrient void.
Well, let me tell you a story, babes. Several years ago, when I was in my 20s, I went along to a ceremony.
Yeah.
And the shaman, basically, there was like this woman there who was a raw vegan and
Yeah.
she had a couple of kids and they had been raw vegans their entire life. Like these kids had never eaten warm food just for a moment.
Wow.
And they live in England. Okay, they don't live in the
Um,
tropics. They live in the
yeah.
cold fucking arse of England, right? And she was there. I remember in the middle of the ceremony hearing her talking to the shaman and going like, "Ah, I just, I'm just never feeling okay." And she was talking about her stuff and like, the shaman just literally turned around to her and went, "Look, you need to cook your food. You can't be a raw vegan living in this country. When it's cold,
Yeah.
you need to eat warm food.
Eat warm
And for your
food.
children, you
Yeah.
need to consider if they need to sometimes eat meat." And I think like,
Yeah.
this is a big conversation that I don't think we need to go into today. I feel like there is space for all of these diets, but I feel like anything that you do that's extreme can push your body out of whack. I think you have to pay attention to everything like your genetics, the place you live, the quality of the food that you can get. Like, so for me, I don't have a garden, so I don't grow any of my own food right now, like, I can't do that, so it's the limit of what you can find, like, how nutrient dense the food that's around you can find, like, how much time you have, can you cook it, can you support yourself in that way, and I wasn't always
Mm,
able to. I do also really, like, feel I feel like country is really important. I feel like, your genetics are important, but I also feel like where you live. If I lived in like when I go somewhere tropical, I don't want to sit down and have like a big roast dinner. Like that isn't what I want
you
to eat. I want
absolutely
to eat
don't. Whenever
salads
I
and
go to the
fruits and
Caribbean, I wanna eat salad
mm,
and yeah, fruit, tons
that's
and
it.
tons of fruit. I'll eat pineapple, mangoes, whatever tropical fruit they have there. I will spend my time eating that as opposed
Exactly.
to, like, a big, like you said, roast dinner or, like, a
Mm,
chunk of steak. I'm just not feeling
mhm.
it. I just feel like I need fruits.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, So my mum she is a vegetarian and she's a vegetarian. Basically just gave me all of her funny things. Like when she was 16, she went to KFC and she bit into the chicken burger and it had like some gristle in it. and that was she stopped eating meat. From that day, she's never had one bit of meat. Like,
I did something similar with a chicken burger, and I didn't go vegetarian at the time, but the chicken burger in McDonald's, I bit into it. It was grizzly, and I was just like, no. And I did not
oh,
eat chicken for like a hot minute. And I wasn't raised to eat beef or red meat, so it was
yeah.
basically just like, yeah, I got really funny with food after that point, actually.
It's hard, isn't it, when you like a bit of a takeaway, but then you have to trust other people to make the food.
You can't trust that. So for Christmas, you would have a nut roast, and that would be like you wouldn't have a turkey at the table. You'd have a nut roast.
We don't have turkey, man. Turkey's dry. We have a nut roast and a chicken. When my
Nut
granny
roast
was
and a
alive, we
chicken.
used to have some gammon, but we don't do the gammon anymore.
When your granny was alive, did you do any of like the midnight mass things? Would you go to like church? Because I know she was Catholic. Would you do the midnight
I
mass or like
I
the
don't
nativity plays, that kind of thing?
I mean, we all did nativity plays. Like, I did nativity plays at school, but not with church. I don't remember, if I'm honest, if we went. I feel like we may have gone to a midnight mass or two, and we may have gone. I think my church had like a different Christmas mass, like a different time, which is why maybe in my head, like it was at 8 o'clock. It wasn't at midnight on Christmas Eve or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm a bit confused,
Yeah.
but like, no, honestly, oh, it's actually quite sad thinking back now because I cannot really remember Christmas with my grandmother. Like, I can remember specific memories about things, but not like that kind of thing. Like, what did we do in that way? And we don't have any specific traditions like that we would
Mhm.
do. But as an adult, I do personally. So with my partner, like we would maybe celebrate a little bit differently. So
Okay. What would that celebration look like?
it would look more like, "Woohoo, it's solstice. Let's do solstice instead of Christmas." I just so when we first, started doing Christmas together, we would, um, do on, like, the 21st. So whenever the solstice was, that's when we would, like, share our presents with each other. It's when we'd share our feelings and stuff of the year before, and I just felt like there was more space for me to create the vibration I wanted on solstice than on Christmas Day, because Christmas Day for me, I feel like anywhere in this country, and I think for most people, like unless you are heavily religious, Christmas Day is just like a capitalistic fucking
Oh,
like
it's just commercial
drain,
bullshit, to be
commercial
honest.
bullshit,
Yeah.
and it's so stressful, and I find it really stressful, but I do also recognize the time of year and this important change in the seasons that's happening, the longest night, and for me, like, creating my celebrations around that vibration was important to do. So I wasn't just like stuck in the Christmas, like Christmas presents, fucking nut roast, whatever. Where actually there we had, and we used to have a stove, so we would light. There's something that you can do. I actually saw this in Sabrina a little while ago as well, and I was like, "Oh my god, all the witches know." So you can like light like if you've got a fireplace, it's really good to light a fire over that night of solstice because it keeps you protected. Basically, nothing can come down the
Keeps
chimney.
the ghoulies at bay,
Yeah,
keeps the
yeah,
duppies away.
exactly. Oh, I love that t-shirt. That's going on t-shirt. How about you? Do you have any, like, things that you celebrate specifically
Well,
or
growing
traditions?
up, I was Christian Church of England, but my mum decided that we weren't Christians anymore when my granddad died when I was 11. But
Okay.
we would, I think a couple of times after that, we did go to midnight mass upon my request. Because as much as you probably heard here before, I said I don't really like churches. Um, midnight mass for me always felt like it had a different energy.
Mhm.
I love the smell of the frankincense. I love the Christmas hymns, because it's less like he died for our sins, and it's more
Yes.
like this is new life, this is new beginnings, this is a new start, this is recognizing a new spiritual season. I
Mhm.
really liked going into midnight mass, so we did that a couple of times, but she wasn't up for it every year. Um, and in primary school, actually going way, way back, we would do these like Christingle ceremonies. And I think a lot of primary schools, Church of England primary schools in the UK do this, where you get like an orange and then you get a red ribbon and you tie it around the orange. And then you put 4 sticks into it, representing the 4 seasons. And then there are like sweets and raisins on each of the sticks stuck in. And then there's a
Oh.
candle stuck in the top. And it's called a Christingle. And
Oh.
you hold it and you sing your little Christingle, Christingle, shine out in the night. All those little like hymns. It was really sweet.
Oh.
And you would, that for me, that felt very freaking pagan. This
Yeah.
idea of representing the seasons, and it's like, yeah, the light represents Jesus and the blood represents the blood he shed on the cross. It's like, this feels pagan as shit. This is fruit with candles stuck into it. This is great. This is some good stuff. So that was a really fond memory from like Christmas growing up. And yeah, Christmas, we would always have a, oh, it was really annoying. My younger brother, at some point, had said to my mum, it makes sense if we eat breakfast before we open presents on Christmas morning.
Ah.
I was like,
Ah.
what kind of child are you?
That's so
So,
weird.
and he would have been like 10 or younger when he
Jeez.
suggested this. And my mum was just like, that's a really good idea. So, we would
I
have
still
breakfast
fight
first.
to open presents first. I'm like, why would we wait? The planting's
No,
cooking.
we
Open some presents.
we'd breakfast first, and then open presents, and then I would get to cooking Christmas dinner because I would be the one who would cook Christmas dinner each year. Because each year, Mum
Mhm,
would threaten to go to a restaurant, and I'd be like, "No, we're supposed to have Christmas dinner at home with the family." So I'd end up
mhm.
cooking it, which in retrospect seems like a ruse. Seems like I was conned into cooking Christmas dinner from about the age of 9 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need that payment and retribution back.
I'm just like, but what
um,
9-year-old can cook Christmas dinner? I'm fucking impressed, babe. I could not have done that.
uh, one year, I think as a teenager, I made a turducken, which is a pheasant stuffed in a duck, stuffed in a turkey. And then I made
This
about 4 different stuffings. It was a
babe,
really
that's some Tudor shit. Like, seriously. Like how the old
it's
kings used
probably
to
the
eat.
best. I was an older teenager when I did this, and it was probably the best Christmas dinner that I think I've ever made. Um, yeah, it was great. It was really good. Um, but as I've, embraced my witch, come into the witchier side of things, I'd always, always, always make sure I did a private blessing to myself on solstice, recognizing it's
Mhm.
solstice, but away from the family because they, of course, didn't know. But now I'm an out and proud witch. Last year, my husband and I discussed like what would it look like when we do eventually have kids, because I'm not particularly fussed about Christmas Day, December the 25th, being a celebrated holiday. I'd much
Yeah.
prefer it being the 21st, the solstice,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what that would look like. And I think gift giving would go on then, and the special meal would go on then, whereas the 25th would maybe be just visiting people's families, or
Yeah.
visiting our family and going to other people's houses. Maybe it'd be more of that. So this year it's definitely, I think this is going out today on solstice, isn't it? So it's
Mhm.
um, going to be more of a more solstice celebration.
Okay.
Now, we've probably said the word solstice a million times. Um, and a solstice is, it's a marking, depending on whether you're in the northern or the southern hemisphere, you'll have winter solstice and, is it spring?
Summer. No, summer.
Summer solstice. Summer, we have
Yeah.
spring and autumn equinox, so,
Yes.
which means equal night, and then you have winter and summer solstice, which, I know the first part of the word sol meaning sun. I don't know what the
Mhm.
second part actually means.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not the etymologist.
No.
That's your skill. But
Your
yeah, but the
resident
solstice,
etymologist, I said. Yeah,
it will be, you can think about the solstice as like the longest day and the longest night.
yeah.
So, also, so the summer solstice is, it's actually, I'm quite confused about this, and I've always been confused about it. And every year I research it
Summer
and try and
solstice
figure it
is the
out.
longest day.
Yeah, no, it's the longest
Winter
day,
solstice
and
is the
winter's the
longest
longest
night.
night. But there's
Yeah,
something, um, there's something about how we mark seasons where the solstices and the equinoxes are important. But I feel like the way that we mark seasons meteorologically, you know the word.
yeah.
Um,
Meteorologically, you said it correctly. It's
okay,
just a
cool.
horrible word.
It creates like an issue with the solstices. I'm not sure. So in my brain, like spring solstice is essentially
Hmm.
like kind of like the start of spring, but actually we're kind of into spring by then. So winter solstice is essentially like midwinter. I used to think of it like,
Yeah.
okay, this is when winter begins, but winter solstice is midwinter and summer solstice is midsummer. So when the sky is at the
Okay.
highest point in the sky, and winter when it's, the longest point. So today, while you're listening to this amazing episode of the Afro Animist podcast, I'm sure it's really dark outside, and I'm really glad we're here to give you comfort on this longest night.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful time actually, because obviously after the solstice, then no matter what the like humans have decided to do with putting the clocks back and forward and fucking us up like that, like after the solstice, the days start to get longer again. And I really feel that change. Like I can really feel like this, almost like on the way into solstice, I just feel myself kind of getting smaller and just wanting to like curl up and like not move. And then once that bubble kind of bursts at solstice, I start to feel like I can begin to birth like the new ideas and things to walk into the new year. So I feel like, if you
Mm,
think about it like that, well, obviously we think about Christmas, and then a week later we've got New Year's. But for
yeah.
me, my New Year starts on the 21st or the 20, whenever that will fall on of the year. So and then it's that you've got that period of time where you, for me anyway, you can kind of, you're in a rest phase, probably not much work is going on, so you can kind of begin to build um the story you want to live for the next year, and then walk in. For me, I like to walk in on January 1st, like doing exactly what I want the rest of the year to look like, which I know is what most of us do. But that is the one day of the year I'm going to get up at 6:30. I'm going to do my yoga, my breathing, 3 hours of chanting. I'm going to like make an amazing meal.
Start as you mean to go
Start as you mean
on,
to go
all
on.
of that. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
I think on the 31st of December this year, I'm going to be on a plane, so that will be
Oh,
that's how I want the year to be started.
babes.
Just jet setting and traveling. Okay, I've looked up now the etymology of solstice. It's quite
Okay.
fascinating. Sol, like I said before, sun in Latin,
Hmm.
and then it comes from the stis part comes from Latin,
Okay.
sistere, which moved into stit, which means stopped or stationary. And then the word in Latin became solstitium, which means
Okay.
sun stop or sun stationary.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, whereas equinox, it's a lot more obvious what it is. Equi
Hmm.
meaning equal, nox meaning night.
Hmm.
Equinox equal
I mean,
night.
when you say that's obvious, but only if you speak Latin, and most of us don't, babes.
I don't speak. I didn't. I was not fortunate enough to go to a Catholic school that taught Latin. Um,
Do you think
yeah,
you'd like to
did not
learn
go to
it?
one of those. Yeah, totally. It's spellcasting language, isn't it?
Babes, yeah, I mean, Latin, Aramaic, I feel like holds
Mm,
some keys. I
yeah.
was obsessed with that. When I was about 14, I was like, I have to learn Aramaic. I have to learn Aramaic. I have to learn it.
Really?
Yeah. And then
Madness.
I started learning Mandarin instead, because I also really wanted to, be a ninja. Well, obviously that's Japanese, but I wanted to go over to China. I wanted to train properly as a Shaolin monk and do all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But
So you
anyway,
learnt
again,
man.
we digress.
Okay.
Well, I tried to learn Mandarin. I did try to learn Mandarin, but this is back in the day before YouTube was really a thing, people. So I know that may be hard to imagine. You couldn't just find everything on YouTube. I bought a CD,
Yeah.
and I'd be sitting there in my room going, boo, ba, Boo. Shay Shay. Shay Shay Ni. That's it. That's all I can remember.
Do you know what? Um, if I ever get back round to refreshing the brain on it, we can learn together.
Oh, I would love to.
So we've explained what a solstice is, and um, across the world, across the globe, the northern hemisphere, mainly this time of year, because this time of year, south of the equator, it will be their summer solstice. So they're reversed to us because we're now not getting the sun, but they're getting all of the sun, and then it flips each year, or each solstice rather. Each year. So there are loads of different ways that this is celebrated around the world. So this was observed in ancient Mesopotamia. It was observed the Hopi by the Hopi of southern USA. Um, Roman Saturnalia. They had a whole festival around hailing the planet Saturn, the god Saturn, um, which I think is quite fascinating. That really it was Christianity that got rid of Saturnalia,
Hmm.
and then that became sort of syncretized. So they were already in Rome celebrating this celebration around this time of year, where they were celebrating the planet Saturn, and then Christianity came in and sort of said, no, we're going to be celebrating Jesus because this is when he was born. When technically it's thought that he was actually born around April.
Oh, is it?
So really,
I thought it was
yeah. So
September.
this
Who knows?
we get told all kinds of he was born here, he was born there, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
blah. But the reason we celebrate Christmas around this time of year is actually because of the way the Romans celebrated solstice.
So,
In
do you know?
Iran, go on.
Sorry. I was just going to ask, do you know about Saturnalia, the festival Saturnalia?
I know it was a pretty um, a celebration at the ends of harvest. Essentially, it's the end of the year, and then harvest has already happened. You have all of these stores, and you're just like eating to sickness. That's as
Okay.
much as I know about
Yeah,
it.
in my
Are you
brain.
familiar with Saturnalia?
Well, I don't know. I don't. Okay, so this is where I'm like, do I know this, or has somebody spoken to me about some kind of conspiracy shit? I don't know.
Okay, so for the Romans, this was a time to celebrate the ancient harvest of God, and this is coming from solsticelady.com. Um,
Okay.
so it was the ancient harvest god Saturn. So I got something right there. Um, Saturn had been the king of gods in a far off mythical past before
Mhm.
Jupiter and the Olympians. It was believed that in Saturn's time there had been a golden age where everyone was equal, everyone was deserving, and no one wanted for a thing. It was a time of peace on earth and goodwill to all men. When Saturn was overthrown by his son Jupiter, this golden era came to an end. In Saturn's temple, he was shackled or bound by a length of wall to show that God no longer held influence over the world. But every year on December 17th, the priests of Saturn would go to the statues where they would solemnly remove the binding from around the god's ankles. This act symbolized their intention to release the power of the god. Then the priest would step out onto the steps of the temple where they would shout, Your Saturnalia, hail to Saturn. And thus the festival would begin. Statues and dwellings were festooned with greenery in tribute to the agricultural god representing his power of renewal. Fires were lit, lamp and candle to hold off the lurking dark spirits. This is
Mhm.
quite interesting. People filled the streets
Mm.
wearing masks or blacking their faces,
Yeah.
probably a holdover from the Babylonians seeking Tammuz in the streets during their 12-day festival. Little
Mhm.
masks of the gods of intoxication, Bacchus, were hung on trees. Interesting. Um,
So that this.
and
Sorry.
go
No,
on.
continue. No, continue. This is. I'm so interesting.
um, Children were given small clay dolls representing the sacrifices that were once made to Saturn to assure the fertility of the land. Soon the exchange of gifts began. The wealthy were urged to give gifts of clothing or food to their less fortunate friends. Those who had less gold but might be wealthy of wit were encouraged to write a piece to entertain or enlighten their friends. So it was really just a festival of like, if I had more than I'd give to my friends. My friends had less, they would entertain, and it feels like a really like indulgent festivity.
Mm.
Um, no wars were fought during Saturnalia. Any wars that the Romans were engaged in were brought to a temporary halt while Saturn ruled the land. Schools were closed. No banking or business was to be conducted. Indeed, the only people who were allowed to work were the cooks who supplied the lavish banquets. All celebrants would don a red peaked cap called a pelleas, which was a symbol of a freed man. Ah, we have the Santa hat.
Ah. So
Ah.
so a
I think
peaked hat.
that's really fascinating, actually,
That's so fascinating. That's so
because I've
interesting.
also heard these stories of
Mm,
Santa. Uh, if you're familiar with like Amanita muscaria, the
mhm,
traditional Disney mushroom that's red with white dots on it, that is thought that was it's the myth of Santa is based around this mushroom because this
mhm.
mushroom only appears at a certain point of the year,
From
and
October,
then it
guys.
quickly
It's out
goes
now.
into yeah, so it quickly goes into hiding, and there are whole like myths and rituals around this, where
Mm.
it was created into like a drink, and it was drunk around this time of year. So another
S-
thought is that the idea of Santa and his red comes from this
Mhm.
Amanita muscaria.
Yeah, and that the reindeer, so the whole flying reindeer thing as well is about that because obviously reindeer, one of the things that Amanita muscaria grows all over the northern hemisphere, especially in these kind of like UK or Norway, those kind of like slightly colder places, and the reindeers eat it. It's one of their favorite
They
snacks to
do.
eat.
When I've gone foraging for it, you can actually,
Mm,
as I've walked into like areas, you can see the little muntjac deer like see that
yeah.
you're there and like scurry off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, this year, all of the ones that I've seen have been nibbled at. I was like, wow, the animals are like on it this year, boy.
Yeah,
Um,
high on their tits this year.
high on the tits. But also, so about the drink and the drinking of it is very interesting. This is just like, it's not necessarily specifically to do with Christmas, but the Druids apparently over here would get little boys to eat the mushrooms because obviously they are highly toxic. And then
Hmm.
they would drink the wee from the little boys so that they
Okay.
wouldn't have any negative effects and then just get the psychoactive effects.
Oh, those poor little
People are
boys.
fucked up. I know, people are fucked up, man. All through history. Don't do that.
Don't. Yeah,
Just don't
please.
do that.
This is not an instruction. This is not good. We
No,
don't do these things.
just don't, yeah. Anyway, and
Just
Father
don't.
Christmas is red because of Coca-Cola. So, just putting that one
No,
out there
that's
as
an
well.
urban legend.
Are
That
you
is
being
an actual
serious?
urban legend. Apparently, yeah,
What?
I was told, yeah, yeah, he's green, and then Coca-Cola branded him red, and now he's red. No, that's a bit of an urban legend. Actually, the thought is that the red goes back to Amanita muscaria, and now reading this with the Saturnalia hats, even that sort of
That
feels like a
makes sense.
pointy hat. That yeah,
Also, a pointy hat being a hat of a free what did you say it was? A free person?
a free person, yeah.
Again, let's just think about witches' hats here. Let's just think about this pointy hat thing and
Yeah,
that representation. I haven't heard that before. Um,
yeah,
but it's very interesting because obviously if you put any kind of pointy hat, I would almost always assume was a witch's hat. I just feel like culturally now that's what
yeah.
you would think.
You would
So
associate it
yeah,
with, yeah,
you'd associate it. It's very interesting. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that's one way that Christmas has been celebrated in the past. I think I say Christmas. I'm using Christmas as a really loose term here to mean like
Mhm.
the holidays that happen, the celebrations that happen around this time of year. I obviously do not mean Christ Mass, the
Yeah.
Mass of Christ. I
Mhm.
I'm not Christian. I don't align or adhere to that.
No.
But
What? Are you serious?
oh, really? I'm just surprised you didn't know. How have you not known? Um, what I think is a really fascinating celebration. and this is an African American celebration. I mean specifically African American, not African diasporic,
Mhm.
African American. So around the time of the civil rights movement in the 60s and 70s, it was sort of observed that all of the other cultures of the world had their own sort of winter celebration. And of course, African Americans being displaced, not having their cultural heritage, didn't have a celebration. So in 1966, Dr. Maulana Karenga developed the holiday of Kwanzaa, and Kwanzaa means first fruits. It's a Swahili word. So
Mhm.
developed an important seasonal holiday, so that could be celebrated among the African diaspora within the United States. So each day of Kwanzaa, a candle is lit to ignite. So they have like a candelabra. It's called a kinara, and it has what is it? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven candles. And between December the 26th and January 1st, a candle is lit on each day to represent a certain principle. Um, and you've got red, green, and black candles. Red symbolizes the struggle for freedom. Green speaks for the future and hope for tomorrow, and black representing um, um, sorry, black representing the African people. So you have seven different principles. You have self determination, collective economics, creativity, unity, faith, purpose, and collective work and responsibility. Um, and each one is lit to remember the people that came before. And it's invoking the memory of ancestors and to remind of lessons that have been handed down. And I think it's really beautiful that this African American holiday had been created um,
Mhm.
to, give thanks and give reverence. And while I won't be celebrating Kwanzaa because it's an African American holiday, I do feel like there's going to be something similar I'm doing to mark the solstice this year in terms of you know, giving reverence to my ancestors and thinking about the principles that I want to take forward with me into
Mhm.
my new year for my home, my family.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
that's so beautiful because I don't obviously being English, you don't really know much about it. I don't really know much about Kwanzaa, but I think
no,
creating something that is representative of you for this time for anything actually. Like just because something is a tradition or something's done doesn't mean that you should do it. I feel like it's so important for us to find things that make sense for you. If something is missing, then create that and put that in for you and your family and your people because um there are special energies around, this is the point. It's like it's not just a day that, we've swapped over celebrating things. It's because of what's actually happening. It's because of what's happening astrologically, what's happening on the
mm,
earth at those times, like with our seasons, everything. And I think, again, I think I've said this before, I feel like it's really important as humans, especially in the way our society goes where we actually don't have breaks. We just keep going all through the year, you know, to
mm,
recognize that these seasons create changes or are there to and if you can sit with the season a little bit, then you can actually maybe have a little bit of an easier time at that time of year. Like we are totally connected to the macrocosm around us. So everything that's going on
mm,
is affecting you whether or not you're aware of it. And I just feel like there's such a power in being able to create ritual and celebration that makes sense for you and your people, whether or not it's spiritual or not. It doesn't actually matter. We're talking about energetics.
mm.
Spiritual can be a bit of a difficult word for some people, I've been finding recently,
Yeah, yeah,
but
I've
yeah.
noticed that. But yeah, and on the back of that, traditions all started from somewhere.
Mm,
Rituals, invocations, they all started somewhere. Um, they would have had a beginning point in human existence. So, what's stopping you from creating something for you
mhm,
now that you can pass on if you so wish, or you can bring your friends and family into if you so wish? Um, you don't necessarily have to celebrate these like commercial Christian holidays.
mhm,
Um, you can absolutely find something that's going to be more meaningful for you at this time of year, because not everyone likes Christmas. Not everyone
Mhm.
likes the idea of having to go back and see family that perhaps were traumatizing people. Um, and that is totally okay. You don't have to get excited at this time of year. You don't have to feel alone that, oh, like everyone's celebrating and I absolutely can't stand this time of year. There's going to be people around you that you can find and make community and discuss this and,
Mhm.
yeah, do what you need to do for you. Because at the end of the day, this is a celebration which originally celebrated or marks the movement of the stars in the sky, which
Mhm.
was then syncretized with the birth of a Middle Easterner, which has now been syncretized again with the god of capitalism.
Mhm.
It's transformed time and time again. It's so far away from what it was supposed to be,
Yeah.
so far away that I would urge you to bin it if you need to. Bin it.
Mhm.
Start fresh. It's that time of year.
That time of year. Throw it out, put something new in. Yeah. No, 100%. Look, I do like having, sometimes it can actually be really difficult to find the time to see the people that you love. And for me, obviously, that is, my family is a massive part of that, but that isn't true for everybody. And I feel like there is something also in the energy of this time of year, like, even talking about, the ancient or the older celebrations that would happen before it looks like it looks now. They're all about coming together. And I just think that's such a nice thing. Oh my gosh, maybe we should see, this is like, we just haven't arranged our lives. We need to look into the future, because obviously we do that, and we need to plan, because why didn't we do solstice together, babes? Could have made a nut roast. Oh, oh, it would have been great.
Solstice. Well, you know what? There's still time. Let's meet up. Let's do a solstice.
That's
Um,
true.
a, a Christmas, as my mother-in-law calls it. It's
And
pre-Christmas, Christmas.
do you know what's so good about this?
But
You've been cooking Christmas dinner since you were 9, so I don't have to do shit. I'll bring some wine. Yay.
I'll bring some
See,
wine.
if I was your mother's child, we would have been going to a restaurant every year. I'd been like, yeah, why wouldn't you just pay someone to do this shit? Great. Feed me.
Yeah, now I'm very much like, no, I'm not. This Christmas dinner, I feel like I am gonna, yeah, it's gonna be cooked by someone else. It's not being cooked by me. I'm done. After 2020 and 2021, where 3 meals a day were cooked, I am all cooked out. I am just like done.
It's so
I
hard,
do
man.
not want
Three
to be
meals a
cooking. It's
day.
boring. You have to wash up afterwards. It's like hard no, hard no.
I know. I know.
Give me something I can eat out of a. I was going to say out of a plastic bag, but then I thought clementines aren't in a plastic bag. Give me something in its own skin which I can throw onto the ground, and then I eat the thing and don't have to worry about anything else.
Oh gosh. You saying about clementines just brings me back to your story of, like, when you were a child and your school would give you like a candle and orange and you'd be all like nativity and shit. And it just made me think, wow, how fucking ghetto was my school? We didn't even get an orange. Like, we weren't given anything. Schools give children oranges and candles at Christmas, or they feel left out.
Yeah. Vitamin C and pyromania.
Two of my favorite things, if I'm honest. Seriously. Love a candle, love a fire. All right.
I think on that, that's a good place as any to end this week's episode of the Afro Animist podcast. We would love, love, love to know if you've got any solstice or this time of year traditions that you celebrate. You've got any circles going on? Let us know. We're really interested in knowing. Um, yeah, so grateful to have you here. I've been Jay Percy.
And I'm Nicola. And have an amazing holiday season, guys. See you next year.
Bye.
Bye.
thank you, beautiful being of the multiverse, for joining us on the Afro-Animist podcast.
If you want to get stuck into the conversation or have a question about anything we speak about here, join our mailing list and find us on our socials.
On TikTok and Instagram, find us at the Afro-Animist podcast.
On Twitter, you can find us at Afro-Animist. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, you can also find this talk on YouTube. Just search for us and we will pop up as if by magic.
If you're loving what we're talking about here, share, like, and subscribe. And remember to leave us a thumbs up or 5-star rating on your favourite platform.